Here we are again at the Fletcher Canyon trailhead. We focused on this trailhead quite a bit during the summer, and we're going to attempt the Harris Mountain Triangle. We've done the western ridge. You can see the western ridge is on the right. The eastern ridge is on the left. And Harris Mountain is right in the center. So I call this the Harris Mountain Triangle. And the eastern ridge we have not done yet. Now there is a short approach to the eastern ridge, which looks possible, but it also looks very steep and rocky. And let's take a look at this. So there's some potential approach points. This is like a short eastern ridge. Now actually there's a longer eastern ridge that begins at the Spring Mountains Visitor Gateway down in this direction. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go for the longer ridge, which is going to come up behind this ridge that you see, connect with it about here, and then you can see things level off until you reach Harris Mountain summit. And then the goal is to return by the western ridge, the ridge on the right, and end up right here where the beast is. So the whole challenge is, can we take that longer ridge and summit at this point? If we can, we've completed the Harris Mountain Triangle. So that's the goal. We're going to cross the bridge behind this restroom at the Fletcher Canyon trailhead. By the way, we are about 40 miles outside of Las Vegas, or away from the Strip in Nevada, in the Mount Charleston wilderness. And so anyway, we cross the bridge behind the restroom, take a left on the Escarpment Trail, and head down to the Spring Mountains Visitor Gateway, take the Escarpment Trail to a high point where we can connect with that ridge, that long ridge. So that's the goal for today. Let's go for it. So here we are crossing the bridge behind the restroom, and we're going to take a left on the Escarpment Trail. And just a quick note about the Escarpment Trail: if you've never been to the Spring Mountains, or if you've been to the Spring Mountains and not been on this trail, this trail is very awesome. This is kind of a learning trail. There are some very well designed displays that describe everything in the Spring Mountains, from the geology to the plant and animal life to the history. And boy, you can get a basic education on the Spring Mountains just by walking this trail and reading the various displays that are here. For example, here's one on the ponderosa pine. And these are the amazing, huge pine trees that are at this level on the trail. And then there's always a little bench. You can sit down, you can rest, meditate, but very frequent, beautiful displays on this trail. And so, if you walk this trail before you do any other adventure in the Spring Mountains, you will get a great education that will inform everything else that you do in the Spring Mountains. So anyway, we're going to head down this trail. Next time I check in is going to be closer to the Spring Mountains Visitor Gateway, which is at the eastern end of this trail. So here we go. Okay, here we are, pretty much at the end of the Augustus Trail and the beginning of the Escarpment Trail. Here's the escarpment. It is this cliff face. Escarpment is two different levels that have been, the top one has been elevated by tectonic activity. And what we're going to do is we're going to circle around. There's a beautiful escarpment loop, and we're going to circle around the western edge of the escarpment and then look for an approach up to, this is that point I was describing where the short eastern ridge and the longer eastern ridge meet. And what we need to do is navigate behind these cliffs over to the left behind the cliffs. And so, yeah, we're gonna go up this edge of the escarpment, circle around on the loop above the escarpment and find an approach to the far side of those cliffs, and then on up to, this is actually where the where things level off toward the summit of Harris Mountain. And just to give you an idea of where we are here, Escarpment Trail, Augustus Trail, Cathedral Rock. That's further up Kyle Canyon. The upper southern rim of Kyle Canyon. And by the way, if you're doing the Charleston loop, you would take that rim and you'd go along the trail that circles the loop. Take that rim to the right, you will arrive at Charleston Peak. And then here are the cliffs at the southern base of Fletcher Peak. And there is a Las Vegas Area Trails adventure where we navigated from the Fletcher Canyon trailhead through these cliffs, around and through, to the summit of Fletcher Peak. Found a new trail unmarked. Pretty cool. Anyway, yeah, that's possible. There's an adventure on the Augustus Trail and on the Escarpment Loop, so I'm not going to go into describing those. Let's see what else we can see from here, though. Yeah, there's the Charleston Lodge. The Spring Mountains Visitor Gateway. You could start this adventure at the gateway, however, by starting it further up at the Fletcher Canyon trailhead when I'm all tired at the end, hopefully. If I can make this entire triangle, then I'll be closer to being done. But it only took me about 25 minutes to get from the Fletcher Canyon trailhead down the Augustus Trail to this point. So it's a very quick stretch. Okay, let's head on up the Escarpment Trail, circle around the western edge of the escarpment, and look for an approach to the triangle. Okay, quick perspective from this end of the triangle, and let's start with the western approach ridge. Here is the short eastern approach ridge. There are the cliffs we're going to navigate behind. In the foreground here is the escarpment. Looking down toward the Spring Mountains Visitor Gateway. And now visible above is Angel Peak. We've got there are a couple adventures on Las Vegas area trails. One is where we took Lucky Strike Road to Angel Peak, took a mountain bike. And another one is just a walk through the Spring Mountains Visitor Gateway. Okay, that was Angel Peak, and by the way, the walk through the gateway just shows you the grounds there. Very extensive, different buildings, and then also on that page on LasVegasAreaTrails.com, you can see links to the main site for Mount Charleston and the Visitor Gateway, where there's a link to the event calendar and hours of operation, everything that you need for the Spring Mountains Visitor Gateway. Okay, onward. Okay, you're looking at some ridges, low ridges in the foreground and a higher ridge in the background. That higher ridge is the ridge we are shooting for, and we're going to trace it down and up. Let's start at the top. We're going to start at the top where we want to be, and we're going to trace it down. And notice there's a cliff section. We're going to navigate behind the cliffs. So here we go. Okay, there you have it. That is the ridge, and we're going to start out right about here. And then just work our way up this ridge. So we just need to find the approach location and then it looks like we might have it pretty much made. By the way, this is what the world looks like from the top of the Escarpment Cliffs. Looking up Kyle Canyon, over to the cliffs above or below Fletcher Peak. Charleston Lodge. Spring Mountains Visitor Gateway. Angel Peak. Large view of all that. Got some clouds moving in. The weather report says about 30% cloud cover. I usually don't like to do an adventure in the mountains on a day like this because it probably means if it's 30% cloud cover in Las Vegas, it could be 100% cloud cover here. So yeah, we're gonna have to watch that throughout the day. You can see the clouds starting to gather. So continuing along the Escarpment Trail and watching for that access to the eastern approach ridge. Okay, here's the access point I was looking at the other day. I'm gonna attempt this access point. It's at the bench on the lower, well, I guess it's the upper eastern end of the Escarpment Trail. There's a bench here. Then you can see across the way. It almost looks like there's a pathway over there, and navigate over to this part of the ridge and then on up and look for ways to navigate behind the cliffs up there. We don't know how that's going to look once we get up there, but very often a way opens up. So let's at least check this lower area out, this access, and see. We know that this access will take me up to the base of those cliffs. We just don't know if it will enable us to navigate around the left and upper edge of those cliffs. If we can do that, we are pretty much have it made, but we don't know that either because I haven't been up there. And then we've got clouds moving in, which could present an issue. There could be thunderstorms, and definitely don't want to get caught in that in the wilderness, but yeah, we're going to give it a try. Okay, here we go. And it looks like there is a little pathway right down here. So we're going to take that pathway and navigate on up around the left side of this ridge and then on upward. And upward as far as we can go. Okay, time to check in. Yeah, we're a ways up that ridge and take a shot at the bench where we started. there's some pretty substantial brush up here, but at the same time, there has been a way, I don't know if it's animal paths or people paths, but there's a way to weave through the brush without actually disturbing anything. So far I've been able to do that. And let's take a look around. They're looking down Kyle Canyon toward Gas Peak. And then up ahead, continuing to weave through this brush without pretty much having to disturb anything here. But I want to get up to the spine of this ridge where hopefully things will begin to clear off a little bit. Well, dare I hope, it looks like I'm actually on a trail or pathway that's skirting this edge of the ridge that I'm on. We don't know if this is going to continue, but pretty nice. Maybe it's animal, maybe it's human. We don't know. And then here's the big picture. So getting up to this point, yes, there was a little bush weaving, no bush whacking. I don't whack anything up here. Really work to respect the environment. But anyway, yeah, continuing on, and hopefully this will circle around this edge of the ridge and then over to the other side where we can continue to ascend. And again, what we need to do is get on the left side of the cliffs up ahead. Can we do that? We don't know. And then just to get a view of the place we came from, there's the bench down there on the Escarpment Trail. Let's see if I can nail it. So anyway, so far the big challenge is just to get from that bench to the location I'm at, where it looks like there might be a little trail. These things can come and go, so you never trust them. Okay, now we're in a wide open area. It's a pretty steep, loose, rocky slope, but there's no brush to negotiate. So it's just a matter of sticking to what looks like the ascent path here. Get to the top of this hill that you saw from below. Want to see what the world looks like from up there. Well, we're just about at the top of this mound where we're going to answer the question, is this a dead end and a canyon ahead on all sides? Or is there a route along a ridge to that upper section there? So let's continue on and we'll check in when I get to the top of this ridge. We can look around. Well, good news, we're at the top of this first high point and you're looking down into Kyle Canyon, Visitor Gateway. There's those cliffs at the base of Fletcher Peak. And Fletcher Peak's not too far above I don't know if that is was Fletcher Peak actually, but it's pretty darn close if it's not. Okay, and looking around, yes, if you've noticed, clouds are getting a little thicker. We don't like that. Looking down Kyle Canyon. Yeah, down to Gas Peak. Over to what I call Sky Canyon Ridge. Sky Canyon's on the other side. The ridge has no name, so I just named it. I don't care if it sticks or not, but at least it gives me a reference. And La Madre Mountains. Okay, and looking ahead. Yes, it looks like there is an access. It's going to be steep going to the next high point, but it looks like, yes, it's very doable getting from here to the next high point. We'll get up there and look around. If the weather's too bad, we may have to head back down. There are those cliffs. We want to skirt the left side. And we'll have a better idea how possible that is once we get to this next high point. But yes, we are on the long eastern ridge. I guess there's an even longer, more gradual ridge over here. But we didn't want to go all the way down there to start. So we started at the upper eastern edge of the Escarpment Trail, which incidentally is no longer visible. It's on this side of the Spring Mountains Visitor Gateway and Mount Charleston Lodge. And you can see there are other ridges we could have taken from above the Escarpment Trail. And some of them look pretty nice and gradual without the steeper incline of this ridge. But yeah, we didn't know. And this is not bad. So let's continue on up. Time to check in. We're a little over 8,000 feet in elevation, and we have 2,000 to go. A lot of views opening up. La Madre Mountains. Harris Mountain Ranch. Yeah, in the shade at this point. Harris Springs Road area. Down to where that area meets with Kyle Canyon. And you can see Kyle Canyon Road down below. Gas Peak. Yeah, as these clouds move in, a lot of this may disappear. Then looking up Kyle Canyon Road. There you can see Deer Creek Road branching off. The road between Kyle Canyon and Lee Canyon. And also at the upper portion of that road, you connect with the North Loop Trailhead. Angel Peak. We're in a mountain mahogany grove here. This is the ridge we are on. You see it's pretty steep in all directions. And in addition, steep going up, but we're going to continue upward. And hopefully we'll see if there's a way around those cliffs we were looking at. And hopefully the gathering clouds will not get bad. Okay, onward. And by the way, the Spring Mountains Visitor Gateway, so you can get a look at how much altitude we've gained. Approaching the next high point. We saw it from below, and once we get to the top of this, it's a little mound, maybe a 800-foot mound at that. Once we get to the top, we'll see if we're at a dead end or if we can see those cliffs we need to skirt, and if there's a way around the cliffs. So either we're heading back or we're heading onward. Well, we're about 1,500 feet from Harris Mountain summit. Not sure if we've got a direct route, and we're in a burn area now. These trees that you see, the white ones, they were mountain mahogany at one time. This could be part of the Carpenter Fire burn of 2013. We don't know for sure. But we still need to ascend another high point, and there are the cliffs ahead. And hopefully this next high point will show whether we actually have a way around the left side of those cliffs, which would pretty much make it possible to get to Harris Mountain. If not, then we're at a dead end. By the way, yeah, there's Charleston Peak. We'll see a lot more from this next high point. Okay, a lot more is visible from here. There's the Harris Mountain area. I'm going to zoom in on what I think is the summit of Harris Mountain. About 1,500 feet above where we're standing right now. And you can see the ridges here. Here's that cliff line that we were looking at. And it looks like what I'm going to need to do is traverse over to this ridge and gully. And then head up that very steep slope to Harris Mountain summit. So the question, is that traverse possible? We'll find out. And wind kicking up a little bit. I think it's because of the altitude, but the clouds aren't helping. Looking down this ridge, on the other side of this ridge is Lovell Canyon. You remember this from when we went from Lovell Canyon to Harris Mountain, and then the southern Wilson Ridge High Point. Right in that area. So it gives you an idea where we've been on the Wilson Ridge, and then around to the La Madre Mountains, and you can see the whole ridge line between Harris Mountain summit and the La Madre Mountains. We've been a lot of that ridge line, but there's still some areas on the ridge line we have yet to traverse. We'll zoom in on La Madre and El Padre. La Madre on the left, El Padre on the right, and then further over is Burnt Peak. And Red Rock Canyon is right on the other side of these mountains. And there you can see very dimly Las Vegas Valley. Over to Gas Peak. Over to Angel Peak. And then this way, Fletcher Peak on the right, Mummy Mountain on the left. And then we've got a decent view of Charleston Peak. And then Lee Peak. Okay, so there you have it. And once again, we're going to see if we can find a way over to these slopes that are just beyond the cliffs to get us up to Harris Mountain. Okay, yeah, some pretty cool flowers up here. I think this is desert paintbrush. This looks more like desert paintbrush, but yeah, I guess it's got a different phase that we're looking at before it goes to seed. So welcome to spring in mid-August. Okay, now it's just a matter of making it from this point right here over to that point. And you can see how I can ascend from that point once I get on that slope. So it doesn't look impossible, and I've got time, so let's just give it a try. Well, I think I'm going to name this section here below the cliffs up there. I'm going to name this the Terrible Traverse because we're going sideways along a slope, and we just need to get over to this. And then we head up, and I'll call that the ladder. So anyway, yeah, continuing along the Terrible Traverse. Well, as you round corners and continue, other ways open up. Just possibly, this is the end of the cliffs. So I don't need to do the whole Terrible Traverse. Maybe I just go up at this point. We don't know. We'll find out. Could be a dead end. It could be the way up to the ridge. The upper ridge, that's the final approach to Harris Mountain. Okay, time to check in again. If I can wind my way around and through this terrain up to the tree line up there, I think I will be on that more gradual plateau to Harris Mountain summit. We don't know for sure. About 1,000 feet below the elevation of the summit. Let's see if I can turn It's not easy here, but it's certainly a lot more secure than other places I have stood. Yeah, I've been traversing this slope. There is the slope. By the way, really interesting fossils here. It looked like a fossil tree branch embedded in that limestone. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue on up. See if we can weave our way up to the tree line. Well, here's a little rest spot. I can't believe I just came up this. I've got more to come above me, but it seems to be tapering off a little bit. There's Potosi Mountain. Wilson Ridge. La Madre Mountains. And looking down Kyle Canyon into the Las Vegas Valley. There you have it. Now let's see if we can get up to that plateau, or that that place that begins to level off somewhat. I believe that we are within, I don't know. Yeah, I can't even guess. 1,000 feet or so of the summit. Well, things have somewhat leveled out, just somewhat. It looks like there's still some cliffy sections ahead. Coming up that last slope to this point reminds me of something I read about climbers at one time. It's a condition called sewing machine leg. And that's when your leg starts to uncontrollably shake, and it's like it's got a mind of its own. You can't talk it down. And yeah, I think on that loose rock slope, very steep slope I was just on, I experienced sewing machine leg. Anyway, we're up off that steep slope, but not out of the woods yet. I think we need to get to this high point on the right, and then the high point on the left should take us pretty much to Harris Mountain. We're definitely not going back the way we came, so the point of the route of least resistance is to keep pressing on forward at this point. So I just want to get to that high point on the left ahead, and that should be the almost Harris Mountain summit. We're only about 800, 700, 800 feet below the altitude of the summit. So yeah, when I'm standing on that, but there's a cliff in the way. So that should be interesting. Onward. Okay, time to check in again. We're at a nice viewpoint, and the weather seems to be cooperating. So that's what we need to overcome in order to make the summit of Harris Mountain. And it looks like the right side of that rocky area might be the ticket. Yeah, we get above that rocky area, we will be on the last plateau before the summit, and only a couple 100 feet, 300 feet maybe, below the summit altitude. In the meantime, we're looking across this direction, and here's Charleston Peak. Lee Peak. Mummy Mountain. And Fletcher Peak. And then looking around in this direction, much more of the Las Vegas Valley is coming into view. First of all, let's just take a look at the Wilson Ridge. There's what I refer to as the southern high point. And then you can see Potosi Mountain, and to the left is the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridge line. There's some great unique perspectives here. Few, if any, people ever see this wilderness and this slice of southern Nevada from this exact perspective. So there are the La Madre Mountains. Then I'll pan over to the right, to the left, and we'll look at the Las Vegas Valley. Yeah, you need to be in an airplane. You need to be in an airplane to see what we are seeing at this point. We're going to go over now to Gas Peak, and then to the left of Gas Peak, the Sheep Range. There's a lot of glare on this screen, so I'm hoping that comes through more clearly in the video than what I'm seeing right now. Anyway, there you have it. That's the perspective from here. Now let's continue upward. Well, looks like we just walked up right through the center of those cliffs that we were looking at, unless the cliffs are ahead, but I have a feeling that I just walked through them. There was a nice passage right in the center, and as you can see, here they are. We're at the upper edge. Wow, hadn't expected that. If indeed I have passed the cliffs, I'm only 400 feet below the altitude of the summit at this point. So it looks like we're going to make that Harris Mountain Triangle, because if I get to the summit, I know I can go down the western ridge, because I've done that a number of times. So onward. Okay, we're on the eastern approach ridge of the Harris Mountain Triangle, only about 300 feet below the summit of Harris Mountain. And everything's looking good to this point. We're in a forest now, pine forest. I'm not seeing much by way of bristlecone pines yet. Well, there's the Charleston Lodge. Might as well zoom in on that. Show you how much altitude we've gained. And here's the eastern approach ridge, part that's leveled off a little bit after that terrible traverse and scramble up that loose rock, steep slope. This is a walk in the park now. Very, very nice and welcome. And we should be able to walk right up to the summit of Harris Mountain. I won't say that for sure because I don't want to jinx it, but everything's looking really good. Okay, who put this false summit here? I'm on a false summit. I thought I was going to be on the summit. I'm about 100 feet below the level of the summit, and you can see the western approach ridge now going down from the summit. There's Charleston Village. Charleston Village below. Griffith, Charleston Peak. And then over, you can see Griffith Peak behind Harris Mountain. Looks like we got quite a little razor's edge ridge to get from here to the summit of Harris. May not be too bad, but I don't know. There's some gnarly points up ahead. Circling around to Mummy. Fletcher. And then just to make the circuit here. Yeah, it's going to be a question whether we're going to make it back down out of the wilderness by dark tonight. I would like to. I think I've got enough sun. It just depends on what this Razor's Edge ridge is like between where we are now and the summit of Harris Mountain. So here we go. And by the way, we can now see Harris Mountain Road below. And here's the trailhead for the Griffith Peak Trail. And here we're looking at Mount Wilson on the right, Rainbow Mountain in the middle, Bridge Mountain on the left. And Level Canyon down to Potosi Mountain on the opposite end, south end. And here you can see the Wilson Ridge ascending to Harris Mountain summit. We've taken that before. And that would be on the Level Canyon to Harris Mountain summit page of Las Vegas Area Trails. Okay, let's see how we can navigate this little razor's edge below us between where we're standing and Harris Mountain summit. And what do you know? Here's a little summit marker for this false summit. So there you have it, Harris Mountain False Summit. Here we go, to the true summit. Well, I wasn't expecting this. This we'll call Harris Mountain's Last Revenge. Yeah, so looks like we got a cliff face here. So down we go, and then up to the summit. Looks doable, but we may have a little sewing machine leg before we're done. Okay, here we go. Well, that cliff edge was all scare and no real danger. I just navigated. Actually, I could have come down right through the cliffs. It just didn't look possible from above. Looked like a drop off, but I navigated around this end, and here I am, no sewing machine leg, and we're back on the final approach to the summit. No obstacles between us and Harris Mountain summit at this point. Looking back at that little gnarly rocky area that we bypassed. And here's the ridge we're on. And Harris Mountain is just beyond that false summit ahead. A lot of false summits. Okay, now we are looking at the final approach to Harris Mountain summit. Straight ahead. Do a quick 360. There's a little gnarly false summit. Continuing the 360. And you should recognize all these landmarks by now. Let's head up to the summit. Okay, I believe this is Harris Summit. And now that I've done both the eastern and the western approach ridges and made the Harris Mountain Triangle, I can say, wow, the eastern ridge is a killer. A lot of steep slopes. It's like the eastern cliffs of Mummy Mountain. By the way, yeah, here's the summit box on Harris Mountain. We're going to need to hightail it down the western ridge, but at least it's downhill all the way. Okay, to give you an idea of timing here, it took me about 9 hours to get from Fletcher Canyon Trailhead to this point by way of the Escarpment Trail and the Eastern Approach Ridge. So this is definitely not a streamlined approach to Harris Mountain. The only thing I can say for this is that we did make the Harris Mountain Triangle. We've done both the eastern and the western ridges. I'll be descending the western ridge, but I've done that a number of times. There you can see Sexton Ridge leading up to Griffith Peak. That's another one. I've done most of that. There's maybe about 1,000 feet between when I descended Sexton Ridge from Griffith Peak and when I ascended it from Lovell Canyon. So yeah, there's about 1,000-foot gap, and we'll complete that at some point. Not this year because the days are getting shorter. I've got about 2 hours of light left, and that's going to be pushing it to get down off the western approach ridge in 2 hours and on to roads. So we'll see how that goes, but here we are. I love this mountain, Harris Mountain. Well, one thing about being up here so late is that the sun's in the right angle to see a few things. There's the sheep range. Gas Peak. And let's pan around the Las Vegas Valley a little bit. And then here's Mount Wilson on the right, Rainbow Mountain in the middle, Bridge Mountain on the left, and then even beyond Bridge Mountain on the left, you can see White Rock Mountain. Okay, time to head down. There's a rare Acustus butterfly found only in the Spring Mountains. And you saw it on Harris Mountain. Okay, heading down the Western Ridge now. Here we go. Okay, I've done the Western Ridge a number of times, so I'm not going to do a whole lot of filming on the Western Ridge. You can see it on the Fletcher, Fletcher Canyon to Harris Mountain page on the Griffith-Harris circuit, the Harris-Griffith circuit. You can see the Western Ridge on a lot of different pages on LasVegasAreaTrails.com. But here's the basic lay of the land here. Heading down this ridge, and you see that pointy area. That pointy area at the base of the ridge. Well, at least the pointy area. It's not at the base. The base is just beyond. Just before that pointy area, I turned down to the left to the Rainbow subdivision. And in the subdivision, I hit Rainbow Ridge Road. And Rainbow Ridge Road is going to take me around the lower end of the ridge. And it's going to parallel, it's going to connect with the Acustus Trail and parallel Kyle Canyon Road, take us back to Fletcher Canyon Trailhead. So that's pretty much the story of how we're getting back down. I'll just trace that real quick. So there you have it. And like I said, I'm not going to do a whole lot of filming on this ridge this time. Just wanted to give you the basic idea. And when we get back to the Fletcher Canyon Trailhead, we will have completed the Harris Mountain Triangle. We'll take a quick look at the sections of the Western Approach Ridge. There's the Aspen section straight ahead, looking up, and then you go into a bristlecone pine section, and it's unburned. The Aspen section has a forest that was burned in an earlier fire. And then continuing on down past the Aspen section, there's a grassy section, and then there is the sharp edge of the ridge, and then there's descending the ridge to the left before you reach that pointy area in the distance there. And then there's Rainbow Ridge Road. You descend to that, and then Forest Road 579, I think it is, Rainbow Ridge Roads meets up with that at the base of this ridge, and I guess it's called Rainbow Ridge, if that's Rainbow Ridge Road. Anyway, at the base of the ridge, you meet up with Rainbow Ridge Road meets up with Forest Road 579, and you take a right onto 579. That takes you down to the Forest Service area on the Escarpment Trail, and then it's just a matter of heading down to the trailhead down in that area. So Aspen section, grassy section, ridge section, and then the roads. Quick word, we are in the grassy section now. As you can see, it's very steep, and it's a burn section, so there are lots of logs here, and there are also, the grass is hiding, and the same with the Aspen section above. The grass hides drop-offs, so you got to take it very careful and don't put your full weight on anything, any tree, unless you've checked that both ends are securely anchored. So that's pretty much the strategy for dealing with a section like this. And grass can be slippery, so just take your time. There's no rush. Hopefully there's no rush and you've got enough light left in the day. Anyway, yeah, don't even rush if you're running out of light, because one fall up here in isolation is, could put you in a world of hurt. So, okay, continuing on down. Okay, we've reached the bottom of the grassy hill section, and now we're entering what I call the Ponderosa Pine section, and we should emerge from that onto the Razor Ridge, call it that. So here we go.